holy cow, what kind of a rude son of a gun have I become to ask a question like that to my own mother? And then I'm thinking, how come she ain't answering the question? And she goes, he's not your real father.
Move over, baby boomers. It's time for Gen XYZ. It's time to stop waiting on the world to change. It's time to be the change. It's time to stop thinking about how your life can be better. It's time to start taking action, massive action to improve your life. Join Zach Winter and Mark Adair Rios every week as we learn how others had the grit, determination, and conviction to 10x their lives, and as we explore ways that can help you 10x your life.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the 10x for Gen XYZ podcast. I'm Zach Winter.
And I'm Mark Adair Rios.
And today we're really pleased to have as our guest Clint Arthur. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's had well over 100 television appearances. He's a Pulitzer-nominated author. And he's really got this great expertise that he initially developed in media training that focuses on 10xing his clients' media coverage and their success. And he's really built his business beyond that. And we'll get into that in our podcast. Clint, welcome to the show.
Hey, bienvenido from Acapulco. Great to be with you guys. And I'm excited for today's interview. I got a lot of stuff to say that a lot of your people have never heard before.
All right.
Awesome.
Well, why don't we get started by having you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into what you're doing?
I came home from graduating from the Wharton Business School to get the attaboys from my parents because my big dream had been to become somebody special. And when I was 14, I discovered this thing called the Wharton Business School, greatest business school in the world. And if I could go there, I figured maybe they would stop arguing so much because that was definitely my fault, you know, and I was kind of right. It was my fault. I graduate, I go home to get the attaboys, and what happens? They get into the biggest argument they ever had in their lives. My dad storms out of the house, slams the door. I turn to my mom. I'm a real smart aleck, young graduate. And I go, hey, you know, Mom, the way he resents you all these years, have you been cheating on Dad? And I'm sitting there on the couch in the living room where I've sat a million times in my life. And I'm thinking to myself, holy cow, where did that idea come from? I never even thought that idea one time in my entire life up to this point. And then I'm thinking, holy cow, what kind of a rude son of a gun have I become to ask a question like that to my own mother? And then I'm thinking, how come she ain't answering the question? And she goes, he's not your real father. Your real father was a doctor at the fertility clinic we went to for 6 years trying to have you, and you look just like him. And I'm like, say what? Now, you really cannot imagine how much of your own self-identity is tied up into the fact that you think you know who your father is. You think you do. According to Forbes magazine, I read subsequently, as many as 30% of all people on the earth don't actually know who their real father is.
Really?
And that's a statistic I can believe, because if you think about how little time it takes to make an Oprah, I mean, Oprah is one of my mentors. And if you haven't heard her tell her story about how her parents were teenagers who met under an oak tree one time, and out of that one meeting came Oprah. Yeah. Right? When you think of it that way, a lot of people don't really know who they are. So what did I do? I sure as heck didn't know who I was anymore, and I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up anymore. So I get on the phone on Monday morning and I call up the investment bank on the 87th floor of number 1 World Trade Center. Mr. Vice President, thank you. I decided I don't want to be an investment banker anymore after all.
And so you had already gotten this position after you had graduated from Wharton.
Graduated, had my offer to go into investment banking in the late 80s, like every other Wharton graduate, like, you know, all my fraternity brothers did. And what did I actually do? Naturally, I ran out to Hollywood to try to find myself. Most people go to Hollywood to lose themselves. I went there trying to figure out, who am I? And I quickly found that I became a very special person. I became the Wharton Business School taxi driver. Yes, that's right. I chased the Hollywood dream for 13 years. And I spent the last 6+ years behind the wheel of yellow cab number 6087. And when it came to be New Year's Eve of 1999, New Year's Eve of the millennium, where were you guys? Were you getting Y2K cash out of an ATM? Were you
I was a bit of a hacker then. I don't know.
Were you partying?
I was in Hawaii that New Year's Eve.
I was behind the wheel of yellow cab number 6087. In the backseat of my cab that night were these two guys who were MBA interns.
Yeah.
I'm listening in on their conversation. Hey, man, did you hear that Mr. Carrera got made the last partner right before the Goldman Sachs IPO, and they gave him all his shares and he cashed out $1 gazillion? And I'm like, are you talking about Chris Carrera? How do you know Mr. Carrera? Chris Carrera was one of my fraternity brothers, the last partner right before the Goldman IPO. And he's not the only one. They were all becoming millionaires. I go back to my little boat I'm living on in Marina del Rey. It's the cheapest way to survive in LA. And I climb into my bunk at 6 o'clock in the morning, pull my wad of cash out of my shoe. $513 driving a taxi on New Year's Eve. Where was Chris Carrera tonight? At partying at the Rainbow Room. And that's the night that I said, I can't do this anymore. I'm never going to write again. I wrote 30 screenplays and 10 books up to that point. I said, I'm never going to write again. It's not worth it. I chased this dream for 13 years, threw my life away. Now, today, people ask me, do you resent or do you regret those 13 years? I don't regret those 13 years because they taught me the lesson, the most important thing in business. And they don't teach you this at the Wharton Business School.
Yeah.
They don't teach you this at the Harvard Business School. I've spoken at 3 events sponsored by the Entrepreneurship Students Club of Harvard Business School. I've asked this president of the club, does anybody talk about this at Harvard? No, they don't talk about this. They don't talk about this at USC Business School. My daughter was a USC honors filmmaking program graduate. I spoke at the USC Business School Entrepreneurial Center. I asked the teacher of that class, does anybody else ever talk about this? No, nobody's ever talking about this. At USC Business School, which is in Hollywood, which you would think they would talk about this. So in 2008, when the world was melting down, I was at a men's self-help campfire. I transformed my life. I got out of taxi driving. I got into selling gourmet food. I've had a gourmet food company servicing the top restaurants in Las Vegas, New York, Los Angeles since 2000 plus. Nice. So more than 20 years. And throughout the 2000s, I got fat and happy building real estate and selling butter. Met a beautiful woman. She believed in me. I actually got to be obese. And when the world was melting down in 2008 in October, I was at a men's self-help campfire. The shaman on the other side of the yellow and orange crackling flames goes, "You don't know it yet, but you're already dead." I said, "What the hell are you talking about, man? I'm the most successful guy on this team. 8 years ago, I was driving a cab. Now I'm a millionaire. I was living on a little boat. Now I live in a mansion. You're already dead and you just don't know it." I didn't know what that guy was talking about, but I couldn't get it out of my mind for months. I'd wake out of sound sleep. I'm already dead. What does he mean? Came to be New Year's Day of 2009. I asked myself a question inspired by the shaman. I said, I don't know what it means to already be dead, but what if this was going to be the last year of my life? What if I was going to die at the end of this year? What would I want to accomplish? And that was a really, you talk about the moments that change your life, right? I've hit you with 3 moments that have changed my life in the stories that I've told you now. Finding out about my dad, the campfire with the shaman, and the New Year's Day, asking myself that question. You see? Because I was surprised. The first thing I wrote down on my list of things I would do if I was going to be dead in a year was I need to write my book about what I learned at the Wharton Business School that helped me to become successful once I started focusing on making money and being a businessman instead of trying to be a movie star and a writer. Mm-hmm. Because I wanted my daughter to have that wisdom one day. She didn't care about what I had to say about business in those days. She still doesn't care what I have to say about business today, but maybe one day I figured she would. Well, I wrote that book and I self-published it. It was called What They Teach You at the Wharton Business School. And a year later, 8 people had bought that book off Amazon.com. And I'm watching it collecting dust on the shelf. And I said to myself, I can't let that thing just collect dust. I sought out a mentor, Jack Canfield. Jack, how do you sell 500 million chicken soup for the soul books? Clint, you got to go on TV. You got to go on radio. You got to do magazine interviews. You got to become kind of famous because people don't buy books from nobodies. They only buy books from somebodies.
Interesting.
So I started paying a publicist a lot of money to get me on TV. I sucked. And I was going to hire her to book me on 10 more shows so that I could get more practice. And my wife asked me a question. She said, why do you keep paying that lady? Why don't you book yourself on shows? And I didn't know how to do that. How do you book yourself on a TV show? There is no pod match for TV shows, right?
Right.
So how do you do that? Well, I had to learn, and I did. It took me 9.5 weeks, but once I booked my first show, it was like catching a fish. My 57th appearance on television was when the Today Show called me, and they invited me on the show, and Brooke Shields interviewed me, and she says, you ask yourself a great question every year. What's that question? I said, ask yourself, if this is going to be the last year of your life, what would you want to accomplish? Because that has been a superpower that has taken me a long, long way. Look how far this whole thing, you're already dead, led to, what if this was going to be the last year of your life? That became a best-selling book. What They Teach You at the Wharton Business School became a best-selling book. And going on the Today Show took me full circle of all of that, because up until that point, I've been focusing on going on TV. And what I've learned is that there's more ways. If you're an author, a speaker, a coach, a consultant, advisor, if you're an expert of any kind, including real estate, medical, health, whatever your expertise is, how do you get people to buy your book, take your seminars, hire you for coaching and consulting? I've modeled a couple of really successful entrepreneurs. One of them was the king of Hollywood. His name was Arnold Copelson. You ever hear of him?
Oh, yeah.
You did?
Oh, yeah, of course. I'm from Hollywood, man.
Oh, okay.
You know that? Yeah, absolutely.
Nobody ever answers that question with a yes.
Arnold
Good for you,
Copelson.
Mark.
Well, I haven't heard of him. Who is he?
Okay, he produced a little movie called Porky's. That was the number 5 highest grossing movie of 1982. His next movie was Platoon. His next movie was Falling Down with Michael Douglas. Then he did The Fugitive with Harrison Ford. And then he did The Devil's Advocate with Keanu Reeves and Al Pacino. Then he did a little movie you might have heard of called Seven with Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman. And then he did Eraser with Arnold Schwarzenegger for a $100 million budget for Warner Brothers. The guy was the king of Hollywood and nobody knows who he is. That is celebrity entrepreneurship. Only his customers and prospects knew who he was. Who knew who he was? Every studio head. They paid him millions of dollars to produce a $100 million movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? Those guys knew who he was. Arnold Schwarzenegger knew who he was. That's a client of his. If he couldn't get Schwarzenegger in the movie, there was no movie. Arnold Schwarzenegger's agents and managers, they knew who he was. Altogether, probably 300 to 500 people, would you say, Mark, knew who Arnold Copelson was?
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah,
that's it. And with that kind of targeted marketing, and how did I know Arnold Copelson? Well, when I was at college, like I said, they send all the kids of the richest, successful business people to the Wharton Business School. My roommate in college was Evan Copelson. I just was on the phone with him an hour ago talking about the good old days in Acapulco, because I came down here with the Copelson family when I started dating the sister. So, that man had an enormous influence on my life. And I realized it when I went to his funeral in 2018. And then another person who's had a huge influence on my life has been Tony Robbins. You ever hear of him?
Barely.
Yeah.
Barely?
Heard of him.
Most people, now that's one where everyone usually says, of course I've heard of Tony Robbins. Everybody knows Tony Robbins. Isn't that like a fair statement? Okay. So here's a little video. And I could show you plenty of these videos.
Anybody here know who Tony?
Sorry. Where did he go?
Hey, everybody.
Here we go.
Hey, anybody here know who Tony Robbins is? Do you? No? Do you know who he is? Do you know who Tony Robbins is? No? How about you? You know who he is? Nobody.
I can show you plenty of videos like that. Starbucks baristas, bank tellers, construction workers. They don't know who Tony Robbins is. You guys know, of course, everyone watching this show, of course, knows who Tony Robbins is. But 99.5% of America has no idea who Tony Robbins is because they're not aspirational.
Mm-hmm.
Entrepreneurial people are generally aspirational. The rest are motivated by pain. They don't pay money to go to seminars. They pay money to buy more shots of Jack Daniels and beer.
Right.
That's how they solve their problems, and that's how they improve their lives. So if you look at the career of Tony Robbins and you look at the career of Arnold Copelson, the way that I have, that's in the book Celebrity Entrepreneurship. And really what it's all about is, how do you have more impact, influence, and income if you're an author, speaker, coach, expert, just like this.
Love
So
that.
when you initially started getting out there and you were doing your own PR and you you kind of turned it around and you started getting all of these appearances. It seems like that's more of a shotgun approach, but what you're advocating and what you've learned is you need to have a much more targeted approach to be more impactful.
Not exactly. I actually say the opposite. Most marketing gurus will tell you that the riches are in the niches. You've heard that before, Mark?
Oh yeah, we say it in real estate all the time.
Okay.
Right.
And yes, that's kind of true, but I say that the millions are in the masses. What I have done is I've identified how do you use mass media to create millions for yourself. And what I've learned is that going on TV, going on podcasts, this is just how to generate marketing assets. That's all. Just so happens that when you go on ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox TV News and talk shows, even if it's in Kalamazoo, Michigan, or Biloxi, Mississippi, the quality of the videos that they make is great.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
So that's all I do. I go on TV to generate high quality videos that have third-party endorsement from ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox. They have high status because it's done at a TV station and everybody knows only celebrities go on TV, right? So,
So then do you take that asset and repurpose it for your marketing and targeting it to who you're targeting?
All the time, because when I went on the Today Show, how many books did I sell of my book that they showed full screen on the Today Show? 0. But in the years since I was on the Today Show, how many millions of dollars have I made off that Today Show appearance? Many. So it's not about necessarily selling books. It's about creating marketing assets and then repurposing, recycling them, reusing them constantly in all different formats.
That's
on
great.
my website. There's screenshots of it. Let's see. Let me see if
I noticed on your website you've got lots and lots of photos of you with various celebrities and people of influence.
Here's there it is, me and Brooke Shields on the set of the Today Show in my magazine, and this is another way, celebrity attachment photos, right? There I am with Mick Jagger and the Rolling Stones, right? So,
what's really interesting is so out here, and I know this probably, Clint, but there's a big thing when you're trying to self-promote as an actor now, or at least in the last 5, 7, 8 years. What'll happen is people will try to go to the nightclubs, they'll try to go to the bars and things like that, and the whole goal is to try to get your photo taken by Getty Images, so that you can go to Getty Images, pull it down. I don't know if you have to buy it or something like that, but now you have an image of yourself, maybe walking the red carpet, or I don't know what it is, standing next to somebody, and it has that Getty Image stamp on that, and that adds credibility.
You're right, and it does. It's a third-party endorsement, or it's a third-party implied endorsement. Now, when I was chasing the Hollywood dream, going on auditions, writing my screenplays, I went to a million parties. And what did I do at those parties? I drank alcohol and tried to get laid, right? So nobody told me that's not why you go to the parties. Nobody told me that. Then thank God, December 14, 2009, I went to a raw vegan retreat to try to lose some weight with my equally fat and happy wife. And I lost some weight, but most importantly, the rule was no drinking, no drugs. So I stopped smoking and drinking for that 2 weeks. And when I came home, I had accidentally quit smoking pot. Thank freaking God, because 6 weeks later, I went on my first TV appearance, and that was 117 TV appearances ago. Now, were those two things combined? I don't know. Then the day after I go on the Today Show, this was really fascinating. The Today Show had been my big goal. And the next day I wake up in the morning, we'd been partying out at New Year's Eve on Times Square. I met Anderson Cooper. I got a selfie with Anderson Cooper in Times Square on New Year's Eve with confetti and shit. And next morning I wake up and I go, hey, you know what, honey? I think I'm done drinking. And it's been over 8 years since I've been 100% clean and sober.
That's awesome, man.
Wow.
Now, all the time I was going to parties, I was just drinking and smoking. Nobody told me you go to the parties to meet other hot actors, to meet famous people, so that you could get a picture with the famous people. This was in the days before there were cell phones with cameras. I had to have a Kodak Instamatic camera in your pocket. Nobody was taking pictures then. But if I knew now what I knew then, if I knew then what I knew now, I would still be going to parties, but I'd be getting photos with people, working it, not drinking it.
Right.
So
That brings up a really good point. I got a question for you. Obviously you've been doing it for a while, and it seems like what you've been doing, not that TV is dead, but there's infinitely more channels now, that are, maybe they're not the same quality as you talk about, but media is becoming kind of bisected and trisected and kind of dissected away from itself, right? And so I'm just wondering, how have you been coaching how long have you been coaching, and how has the changes in the media really changed your approach to teaching people this stuff?
Okay, well, in April of 2013, I did my first celebrity launch pad. I had 12 people who paid me $5,000 a piece to come to that 3-day seminar, where I guaranteed they would book themselves on 3 shows or more, or I'd give them all their money back plus $1,000. Now, 2 weeks from now, I'm doing my 53rd celebrity launch pad. The ticket price is now $10,000. You come and you stay in my villa in Acapulco. I have a 25,000 square foot property in Acapulco that sleeps 16 people in 8 nice luxury suites. I have a butler, a gourmet chef. We serve all gluten-free, sugar-free food. It's super deluxe, and I got producers coming by Zoom from all over the country, some from local, some from national shows, but I still focus on local TV news and talk shows. And my guarantee is now 3 appearances or more, or you get your money back plus $1,000. So I've done 53 of these seminars. It'll be the 10th anniversary in April. So, yes, TV isn't what it used to be, but it's also still better than anything else.
Yeah. And it doesn't, and I guess, I was just thinking about this because, I talk about this all the time, but so I've been an actor for 30 years and I've been a working actor. So I've been in a lot of stuff. I have a lot of material. The last 15 years, 10 years, I've actually stopped telling people to try to watch me live on some show, because it's so much easier to just let it go by, take the material and post it later on. And and people can find it however they want, and it's interesting how things have changed that way. And so I would imagine, because when I really think about it, what you're talking about here is local television actually has not changed in the last 20 years, right? The way that they do it, where they do it, it's all, maybe the format or things like that have changed a little bit, but you're still 3 cameras inside of a little studio out in wherever. And and with what you're talking about, which is brilliant, is taking that media and using it to spread far and wide is awesome, because nobody's going to see you. I can't tune into Grand Rapids and try to watch you live. Forget that, man. Send me a copy of the tape.
I wonder if it's actually easier now to get on these local broadcast channels now that there's so much other content that's streaming. So
they're trying to get guests.
Maybe these people are more hungry to find content.
Look, they're not hungry. They're much more lazy than they are hungry. Okay.
Okay.
But there used to be, if you were not published by Penguin USA or Simon & Schuster, you couldn't get on TV.
Right.
But now I've gone on TV many times with my little self-published, self-illustrated children's book.
That's awesome.
Called Daddy Loves You. There's no lower status animal in the publishing industry than a self-published, self-illustrated children's book, right? And I've been on Boston with this. I've been on in Las Vegas, San Diego, Phoenix.
Pretty big markets.
Some pretty big markets with this little thing. And, I love this thing. If people were to ask me, what's your most important book you've ever read? Well, Wisdom of the Men, is amazing. So this book is about all the smartest stuff that I learned from all the biggest celebrities, how I went from being a taxi driver to working with international superstars and 5 presidents of the United States, revealing all my secrets so you can do it too. This is really great. But I used to always say Daddy Loves You was my most important book, because so many kids don't have a father living at home. And the purpose of this book was, when I got kicked out of the house, when baby's mama said, get the heck out of here, I don't need a taxi driver hanging around my neck. I wrote this for my daughter, so hoping that somebody would read it to her at night, like a bedtime story, so that she would know that even though I wasn't with her, that daddy still loved her. So this is a beautiful book, and I love to promote it. But it just shows you, if you know how to do it, you can get on ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox, even in top 10 markets, with the lowest form of publishing there is, a self-illustrated, self-published vanity project like this little children's book that I created for my daughter.
Right.
So that's what's possible. But there's more to it. There's other things, and if you look through this interview, if you study what I've said in this interview, I've used all of the techniques in this interview.
Sure.
Okay, that I wrote about in my book, Celebrity Entrepreneurship. This is what Tony Robbins does when he goes on TV. This is what Grant Cardone, you ever hear of him?
Of course.
I can show you videos. I got a great video of me at the Harvard Club of New York in front of 40 financial advisors. I got a picture of me and Grant Cardone on the screen. I go, anybody here recognize the man in the picture with me? Not one person raised their hand, because he's not marketing to financial advisors from JP Morgan in New York City at the Harvard Club.
Right.
They're not his target market.
Yeah.
So they have no idea who Grant Cardone is.
Interesting.
It's fascinating, isn't it? But meanwhile, he can
Yeah.
fill up Mandalay Bay Convention Center and Marlin Stadium.
So do you so with everything that you're doing right now, you had mentioned that you own a cooking business, right? A gourmet
Gourmet food business, yeah.
So a lot of these guys, they actually do all this stuff. They do the promoting, they become very well, but they're not only just promoting the books, right? But they actually are going out and buying businesses and running businesses and doing the entrepreneur thing, kind of like us, right? A lot of our marketing is really so that we can do more real estate, because we love real estate.
Sure.
And so I'm just wondering, for your part, do you have like, are you still doing businesses as entities, or is this what you're doing? This is your full-time thing. You're coaching, you're promoting.
I just got paid for a $7,528 order from Bellagio yesterday.
Nice. So you're still running that business, yeah?
Yeah, of course.
Nice.
Why not? And
Yeah.
money's money.
Yep.
But what's fascinating, and I'm sure you guys will agree, that having done this podcast and doing the marketing that you do for this fun endeavor that you're doing, and for your real estate, it's making you better able to interact with
100%.
customers and prospects in your real estate.
100%.
You walk into a room and you're somebody, and at first you don't realize it. But if you look at the way you talk to customers and prospects now compared to 5 years ago, having done all this marketing and media, you become more. Now, a lot of people say, like, when I met Mick Jagger, I said, "Sir Mick, what's the most important thing you ever learned?" He said, "You can't always get what you want, but if you try, you might find you get what you need." And I know it's just a story, it's just a lyric from a song, but it's the real thing, And a lot of people, they hear me and they think to themselves, I don't need that ego gratification of being a celebrity. I don't need all that. I'm good, And the thing is that this is not about ego. This is about marketing. That's all it's about.
Right.
But what happens is that when you do all this media and you're used to answering questions and you're used to telling stories and you're used to people listening to you, you start to behave in a way where you become a little bit different. You become more of the star of the show, even though the show is me and two guys on a Zoom.
Right.
Yeah.
Or me in a dinner party. Or me in a boardroom. I'll never forget one of the times I did what's called a cutting, right? I was trying to get one of my fraternity brothers, his family owns Omaha Steaks. See, the biggest business titans, they send their kids to the Wharton Business School to learn. Now this guy, Todd, he's the CEO of Omaha Steaks. You've seen him on Good Morning America plenty of times, I'm sure. He looks kind of like Zach, but with longer hair that's gray, and he's about 25 years older than Zach. And I did a cutting to try to get Omaha Steaks into Bellagio. This was many years ago. and there were 12 chefs, like every executive chef from the different outlets at Bellagio was there with his assistant executive chef. And I had to go up in front of the room and say something to start the whole thing off. And I was freaking nervous, man. I was like, I could hardly speak. I was like, I dry throat. Today, I go anywhere I want and talk to anybody about anything, anytime, any subject, anywhere, because all this marketing gets you used to talking, being in front of people, answering questions, leading rooms of people to do things that you want them to do.
Right.
That's what
So
we need
Clint,
to do.
in your training, in your course, you help people figure out how to get appearances on these different shows. Do you also give them media training to help them with the actual appearance and how
yeah.
to act and how to answer questions?
At Celebrity Launchpad, a lot of times it's easier not to be the one in the hot seat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's easier to observe somebody else in the hot seat. So at Celebrity Launchpad, we have all these different categories of experts, usually a couple doctors. This time I got a real estate guy coming. I got a IP attorney. I got an IT guy, all kinds of nonfiction authors. I create the segment for you. So this IP attorney, he came at me with a pretty interesting segment. He's like, if you're hiring a contractor or a service provider, here are 5 ways not to get screwed. That was his suggestion. Usually the client, the student will come with a suggestion of what they want to do. And at the end of the session last night, I had flipped that into, did you know that 36% of all workers in America right now are gig workers? So his segment became, if you're a gig worker, here's 5 ways to make sure you don't get screwed.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
See?
Nice.
Yeah. So I will create the segment. I'll create the pitch. I'll give you an audio of the pitch. I give you the actual script of the pitch. And your goal is to memorize it, so memorized that it doesn't sound like you're memorized. It sounds like you're just talking.
Right.
Right?
That's very personalized.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's $10,000. So I know exactly what I'm doing. I know what they want. And this actually, the hook became, there's 59 million Americans freelance. That's 36% of the total American workforce. Even Snoop Dogg, Elijah Wood, and Carol Baskin from Tiger King are members of the gig economy.
Yeah.
Right? So we put celebrity in there. We got some pop culture in there. We got advice from an attorney.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that's what I'll do. And then the producers come in. It's like a cocktail party. I call it a virtual cocktail party. I talk to them. Okay, at this cocktail party, the guest of honor is the executive producer from NBC Spokane, Washington, just for example. I don't have that person, but that's what it would sound like. So Joe Smith, thank you so much for joining me at the cocktail party. Tell me about your show on Spokane, Washington. Okay, great. They tell us about the show. I go, okay, great. Well, I'd like to introduce you to some of my friends. Okay, the first person I'm going to introduce you to, his name is Richard Gearhart. He's the producer and host of the Passage to Profit radio show. It's syndicated in 30 markets on Radio America. He's also an attorney working for 36 years. And his segment, and Richard, why don't you tell him what you want to talk about? And he'll say, Snoop Dogg and Elijah Wood and Carol Baskin are members of the gig economy, just like 36% of Americans say. And he'll just casually talk about it, hopefully casually.
Yeah.
And then the producers will go through all of it. If they like any of the people, they invite them on the show.
Nice.
Oh.
Just like any other cocktail party. If you met a producer at a cocktail party and he thought you were cool, he'd invite you on to be on a guest.
Right.
You had something good. And that's what I do. And that's one of the things that I do.
Do you also, we're talking about helping your clients get on these shows. And you talked a lot about how you go to these different events and you meet celebrities and other people of influence and you get photographs with them, and that helps you in your marketing. Do you help your clients also identify events that they should target and how to get into those events?
Well, events ain't what they used to be, right? And it's harder than ever to get into good events that have celebrities. Like, for example, I was recently at an event, it was in San Diego. This event had been postponed 2 years. The only reason I went was because I paid to be a sponsor and a speaker at the event 2 years ago. So, and by the way, there's me and Carol Baskin at this event that I went to.
Nice.
Right, but who is she? She's a caption celebrity. I had to caption her. I had to say Carol Baskin from Tiger King.
Right.
Once I said that, you knew who she was. But
Then it
if
clicks.
you just see her photo, you don't quite exactly know who she is.
Right.
Not like Snoop, right? Not
Right.
like main man. Where's my main man? Come on now. I said, Snoop, what's the most important thing you ever learned? He said, life's too short to smoke cheap weed.
That's so stupid.
And he's totally right. Even though I accidentally quit smoking, the good stuff in life, you don't want to chimp out. You don't want to cheap out on your marketing, especially. You want to pay for good marketing. So, I from time to time have events. I've got an event coming up in January in Acapulco where I teach the 5 elements of celebrity entrepreneurship. It's called Impact, Influence, and Income Mastery. And at that event, I'm going to have a former Miss Mexico who competed in the Miss Universe pageant to take pictures with the students. So that's, it ain't Snoop, but it's better than nothing.
Right.
And what I've really found, and this would be really interesting, when I've been in photos with super beautiful women, somehow I look better.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, Mark? It's like, I don't know, you pull it out of somewhere, you just look better because you're standing next to her and you got to look better.
Right.
And you're kind of excited to
And
be
you get your glow on.
Yeah.
Right.
It's true. So
That's
I'm
really
excited for my clients who come to my January event. That one's going to be like January 18 through the 23rd. And that's going to include getting a photo with Miss Mexico.
excellent.
Yeah.
And where can people find out about your events? Tell us your website.
Go to Clint.com, Clint with 3 T's. Why 3 T's, Clint? Because one of my clients was a expert in the science of namology. That means, what does your name mean? And she said to me, Clint, I wish you had an extra T on the end of your name because the T's ended up on top, like Trump. And I said, wow, I can't get Clint with 2 T's.com, but I can get Clint with 3 T's.com. So I got Clint with 3 T's.com. And there you can find everything that you want to find out about Clint's events in Acapulco. And, come and transform. These things, they're ostensibly marketing seminars, but they're also a mastermind. It's a luxury wellness retreat because our food is so healthy and delicious. And it includes room and board at the 6-star villa. And it's a lot of fun.
That's cool, man. So I'd love to just give me just a nice and slow, and we'll try to find the links for these on Amazon, but just list out the books that people can go out and try to find of yours.
Well, type in my name on Amazon, Clint Arthur.
Okay.
But my new book is nominated for the Pulitzer Prize. It's called Wisdom of the Men.
Okay, great.
Celebrity Entrepreneurship is a great book. You'll see my picture right on the cover. It was really fascinating. Celebrity Entrepreneurship, the cover is my picture on the cover and the name of the book, Celebrity Entrepreneurship, and my name below that. That's all there is on the cover of that book, because that's what an expert book should look like. But then I came up with this challenge because the cover of this book, Wisdom of the Men, is not at all like that. But how I went from taxi driver to working with superstars and 5 U.S. presidents, revealing all my secrets so you can do it too. And then I listed all the names of the people. So who are the names? Jimmy Carter, George Bush, Bill Clinton, Joe Biden, Donald Trump, Mick Jagger, Mike Tyson, Buzz Aldrin, Jack Canfield, Dr. Oz, Eli Manning, Frank McCourt, who was my creative writing teacher in high school, Patch Adams, Mean Joe Green, Dave Asprey, Halston, Grant Cardone, Ringo Starr, Andy Warhol, Tim Ferriss, Isaac Mizrahi, Joel Osteen, John Travolta. The names go on and on and on. This doesn't fit the mold of the celebrity entrepreneurship book cover, but because I got a lot of great names. And this whole book is really the ideal expression, the ultimate expression of one of my techniques, which is getting photos and telling stories with superstars. This is a super powerful thing. That's why Miss Mexico is coming to the thing, so you can meet her, get a photo with her, tell a story about her when you met her at the celebrity resort in Acapulco.
Nice.
Very interesting.
That's what this is all about. It's a super powerful technique.
Yeah. My first job out of law school, I worked at a law firm, and I worked closely with the senior named partner. And I always thought it was so impressive. You go into these high-powered attorneys or other CEOs' offices, and they'll have photos with different politicians, presidents, et cetera. And he had those. And he also had photos with celebrities because we did a lot of entertainment law. But he also had this photo sitting down with the Pope. And I thought, who else has a photo sitting down for a private meeting with the Pope?
That's
Crazy.
awesome. That is awesome. That
Yeah.
is really, 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 really awesome.
That's a coup for
Yeah.
sure. Because you can talk about that forever. Like,
I
when,
mean-
when does that ever get old?
Who does? Yeah, right. Who doesn't want to know? Well, what was it like? What happened? Right?
Right.
Totally.
Who doesn't want to know? Look, Arnold Copelson. I went to the house for his funeral reception. After the funeral at Woodland Hills, right? What's the name of that place? The Hollywood one, right behind. He got buried right behind the Warner Brothers studios. What's the name?
Oh
of that?
yeah, that's Forest Lawn.
Forest Lawn. Okay.
Up on the hill.
And after that reception, we went back. I got invited back to the house because this was my best friend from college. So here's the mantelpiece. Okay, so there's his Oscar from Platoon. Right.
Awesome.
Next to it is him with Sherry Lansing and some chairman of Warner Brothers. I don't know, right? But on the other side was him and Jay Leno, and then here was him and Arnold Schwarzenegger when he was governor, right? And then there's another one. Oh, there he is with him and Bill and Hillary.
It's cool.
Okay, that's his mantelpiece in his living room in Beverly Hills. See? So this game that I've been talking about and sharing with you guys, this is the game.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Very interesting.
And so your website is ClintTT.com. Is that what
Clint
it is?
with 3Ts.com.
3T.com. Sweet.
Yeah.
Well, great. This has been fantastic, man. Really loved chatting with you and such fascinating stuff. And I think a lot of people are going to get some great nuggets out of this. And hopefully, some people will reach out and kind of get their shine on, you know what I mean? And kind of take it to the next level.
Yeah. Thank you, Clint. Really appreciate it.
Cool, man. Great connecting with you guys.
Yeah.
Hope to hear from people in your audience soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Clint.
All right. Thanks, Clint. Take care.
10X for Gen XYZ is hosted by Zach Winter and Mark Adair Rios, co-founders of Prosperity CRE, a commercial real estate investment firm committed to providing its investors with ongoing cash flow and building long-term wealth. If you like the podcast, please give us a positive rating and subscribe to be notified about future content. Also, if you'd like to learn more about our approach to real estate investing, you can download a free copy of our real estate investment book, Investing for Cash Flow and Long-Term Wealth, by clicking the link in the show notes below. Thank you and stay tuned for our upcoming episodes.